Not all meals are created equal. For instance, breakfast has the spicy egg McMuffin for a limited time, and lunch doesn't. McDonald's breakfast comes first. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Good morning from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Visa Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends as we're going to be chatting it up with John Jansen, who does such great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler. Have to take a look at this NL East race, the landscape of the Phillies moving forward, and what we might be getting at the trade deadline. Also, this big series that we're seeing between the Phillies and the New York Yankees. And then in the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Saturday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters DM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. Then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by Edge Boost. Edge Boost is making sure that bettors are able to have access to their funds whenever and wherever they want. 100% of gambling transactions get approved, and when you do go to edgeboost.bet, utilize that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll get you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Friday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
We did get a Friday day game, and the Brewers had been 40-18 in their last 58 games, but they did not get the job done against the Miami Marlins. This by a count of 5-1, as now the Toronto Blue Jays actually have the best overall win-loss record in all of baseball. We'll get to them in a minute, but that said, for Cal Quantrill, he went out there and he did his part. He gave up 1 run in 5 innings. That was a solo run to Jackson Chourio, 17th home run season. Freddie Peralta, he gives up 1 run in 5 innings. He gave up a solo shot to Kyle Sowers, 23rd home run of the campaign, but the Brewers bullpen broke down. Nick Mears, 3 runs, 2 of which were in 2/3 of an inning. Aaron Ashby, 4 outside the bullpen. He gives up a run. Grant Anderson and Tobias Myers, both under scoreless inning, and for Miami, you had Anthony Bender, Ronnie Enriquez, Calvin Fauché, and Josh Simpson all be able to score a scoreless inning for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Game number 1 without Josh Naylor. Not a lot of offense, but a win. 1-0 the finalists. They win in 11 innings against the Pittsburgh Pirates. This one went to extras as you got a great start out of Ryan Nelson, 6 scoreless innings. Anthony DeSclafani, 4 scoreless innings in relief, and then Kevin Ginkel, a scoreless inning. The Pirates got 1 hit in 11 innings, and for the Diamondbacks, they win this game going 0-9 with men in scoring position as Mike Burrows was great, 6 scoreless innings. Isaac Madsen, Dennis Santana, David Bennar all led a scoreless inning. Braxton Ashcraft, an unearned run given up in the 10th and 11th innings. Pitched well enough to win, but no offense whatsoever. For the Colorado Rockies, they actually have a winning record since the All-Star break. They take down the Orioles by a count of 6-5, and it's not been good for the Orioles here recently. It's seen Kramer 5 runs allowed in 6 innings, including a pair of home runs. Mickey Moniak, 16th home run season. Then Dario Estrada, his 3rd. Ezekiel Tovar then goes deep off of Mr. Andrew Kittredge for his 6th home run season. Kittredge, solo home run allowed in his inning of work. You did have Grant Wolfram and Corbin Martin both lend a scoreless inning. And for the Orioles, you did get a lot of home runs in this game as Kyle Friedland gives one up to Kobe Mayo, his 2nd home run in the campaign. Jordan Westberg, his 11th home run season. Tyler O'Neill, his 4th home run season. Then Andrew Jackson, his 2nd home run season, as for Freeland, he gives up 4 runs in 6 innings, all solo home runs. Jake Bird gives you the Bird, giving up a run in an inning, and then Tyler Kinley and Seth Halverson both turn a scoreless inning. For the LA Dodgers, it's been all sorts of rough for them recently, but they do take it to the Boston Red Sox. This by a count of 5-2 as Evan Sheehan gives up 2 runs in 5 innings. Anthony Benda, along with Eduardo Enriquez, both combined for 2 scoreless innings. You had Anthony Vesia, Ben Casparis, both give you a scoreless inning apiece, and Teoscar Hernandez goes deep off of Ori Alcala's 15th home run season. Alcala gives up that solo home run in 1 1/3 innings of work. You had 1 2/3 innings from Chris Martin giving up a run. Brian Bayo, 3 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings before Brendan Bernardino gives you a pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Lots of scoreless innings in this one as the Minnesota Twins get a 1-0 win over the Washington Nationals. Tough luck loss for Mackenzie Gore. Now he does walk 6 in 5 innings, but only lost 1 hit and 1 run. Cole Henry, Connor Pilkington from there combined for a scoreless inning. Luis Garcia, Jose Ferrer, they both turn a scoreless inning, and you had for the Minnesota Twins a really good start from Zebby Matthews. 6 scoreless innings from there, Danny Kalum, Griffin Jacks, Yohan Duran, they're all able to turn a scoreless inning. 15-3, the A's were able to take it to the Houston Astros, as for the Astros, this was not what they were looking for out of Ryan Gusto. No, Gusto, the fact that he gave up 8 runs in 3 1/3 innings, including a pair of home runs, as for the Athletics, he had Tyler Soderstrom get his 19th home run season, and then you saw a historic night from one Mr. Nick Kurtz, home runs number 20, 21, 22, and 23 of the season. 4 home runs in this game, including in the 8th and 9th inning. He had 3 in the 6th inning or later. Just absolutely ridiculous. And Shea Langoliers, oh yes, Shea banged his 15th home run season. That came off of Nick Hernandez, who he gives up a pair of bombs in 2 2/3 innings. Caleb Ort gave up one of those home runs to Kurtz in his 2 innings of work. And then they had position player Cooper Hummel give up 4 runs in an inning, including that last home run to Kurtz, as you did have Zach Short get his 2nd home run of the season. That came off of Jeffrey Springs. Springs gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings, including that bomb. And then from there, you had a run given up in an inning by Ben Bowden and 2 scoreless innings from Elvis Alvarado. So he was very much in the building. The Atlanta Braves are now 14 games below 500 as they fall to the Walker Texas Rangers 8-3 the final. Joey Wentz was wincing in pain after giving up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned in 4 1/3 innings. Jonah Heim took him deep for his 9th home run of the season, and Nathan Eovaldi on the flip side was very solid. 5 scoreless innings. Caleb Belsley, the pride of Hortonville, Wisconsin. Not what we wanted to see here, Caleb. We still love you. 2 runs allowed in a 1/3 of an inning. Sean Armstrong, Robert Garcia combined for a scoreless inning. Jacob Latz gives up a run in his 1/3 of an inning of work. That was a home run to Michael Harris, who's been miserable this year. 8th home run this season. And then you had Hobie Milner give you 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. And for that Braves bullpen, you had Rafael Montero, looked more like Rafael Montero Bull, giving up 4 runs and he got 4 outs. Aaron Bummer, Hunter Stratton, they both give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen. And Yaniel De Los Santos was able to go for a scoreless inning. The Angels played a low-scoring game, and they did get a win against the Seattle Mariners. This by a count of 3-2. Seattle, your best over team in all of baseball. 56 overs, 43 unders, and 5 pushes thus far this season, but not able to get a lot going here, as Brian Wu did say woohoo to giving up 2 runs in 6 innings. Edward Bizzardo, Matt Brash, Andres Munoz all on the scoreless inning, and then Casey Lugumina in the 10th inning gives up the walk-off RBI single to Zach Neto, and for Seattle, lone form of offense was Julio Rodriguez. Pair of home runs off of Jose Soriano, his 16th and 17th home runs of the season. Soriano gives up those 2 solo shots in 6 innings of work. Brock and Roll, Burke, Reed Detmers, Kenley Jansen, Ryan Zefrion, all able to turn a scoreless inning, and you had Shota Imanaga get lit ablaze by the Chicago White Sox, 12-5 the final. I thought Imanaga was doing for regression, and in 3 innings, he gave up 12 hits, 7 runs, and 3 bombs. Going deep off of him, you had home run number 5 of the season for Austin Slater, home run number 3 of the season, and home run number 3 in, I believe now, the last 7 days for Colson Montgomery. He's been hot for the White Sox, and you also had Chase Medroth be able to get his 3rd home run season. Mike Tauchman off of Chris Flexen would get his 6th home run season. Flexen, well, he's flexing on that ERA. 4 runs, 3 of which weren't given up in 2 innings. Drew Pomerantz, Ryan Brazier, both on the scoreless setting, and then position player John Birdie. He gave up a run in his inning of work, as you did have home run number 6 of the campaign for Reese McGuire. That was the main form of offense for the Chicago Cubs, as he was able to go deep off of Adrian Don't Call Him Doogie Howser, who does give up 3 runs in 6 2/3 innings, but Steve Wilson gives up 2 runs in an inning, and Tyler Gilbert 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Guardians and Royals were washed out, but the Padres, they were washed out in terms of just scoring. 3-0, they fall to the St. Louis Cardinals, as for San Diego, they just have not been able to get a lot of offense going on the road this season. 23 overs, 30 unders, and 2 pushes on the road. And for San Diego, Nick Pivetta was fine. 3 runs, 2 of which weren't given up in 6 1/3 innings. Wandy Peralta, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. David Morgan, a scoreless inning, but for the Padres to go 0 of 9 with men in scoring position. Miles Michaelis allowed 7 hits in 5 innings, but no runs. Steven Matz, Phil Matone, Jojo Romero, Ryan Helsley. From there, they're all able to supply scoreless innings. The Cincinnati Reds were on to a 7-2 win over the Tampa Bay Rays. Zach Little came up very little. 5 runs allowed in 6 innings, giving up a pair of home runs, as you had home run number 10 of the season for TJ Friedel, and then Tyler Stevenson, his 8th home run of the season. Nick Martinez, pretty solid. 2 runs allowed in 5 innings. Lyon Richardson, Graham Ashcraft, Tony Santillan, Emilio Pagan, all in scoreless innings. And for the Rays, you had Ian Sumar give up 2 runs in his inning of work, and Edwin Uceta, he was able to go for a scoreless inning of his own. And now the Blue Jays, who have the best record in all of baseball, 62-42, they take down the Detroit Tigers by a count of 6-2. Jose Barrios gives up 2 runs in 6 innings, including a home run to Spencer Torkelson, 23rd home run of the season, but Braden Fisher, Brandon Little, Yariel Rodriguez, all in scoreless innings for the Blue Jays. They win this game despite leaving 11 men on base, as they got to Kadir Montero. Kadir Montero was more like good to hear Untitled Bull. 6 runs, 5 of which were earned, given up in 4 innings. Tyler Holden, Brendan Hennefy, Jeff Hartlieb all led a scoreless inning, and Brent Herter was able to give you 2 scoreless innings out of the bullpen as well. And then for the Philadelphia Phillies, they do get the win over the New York Yankees by a count of 12-5 as for Philadelphia, they did a nice job of getting to Luke Weaver out of the bullpen as JT Realmuto gets his 7th home run of the season. Then you had Kyle Schwarber get 2 Schwarber bombs in this one, 35th and 36th home runs of the campaign. One came off of Will Warren, who gave up 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings. Honestly, was not bad. Ian Hamilton from there gave up the other one. He gave up 2 runs in his inning work. Scott Effers, 4 runs allowed in his inning work. Luke Weaver, he gives up 2 runs, including that bomb to Realmuto in his 2/3 of an inning of work. In 2/3 of an inning of work, Tim Hill gives up 2 runs. And for the Yankees, you were able to get a trio of bombs. Taijuan Walker gives up a pair. Cody Bellinger's 19th home run season. Giancarlo Stanton 6th, and then Anthony Volpe off of Jordan Romano, 14th home run season, and Austin Wells as well. So you had a 3rd home run given up by Taijuan Walker, 15th home run season. Walker, 3 solo home runs allowed in 5 2/3 innings. From there, Tanner Banks hit out of the bullpen scoreless. Jordan Romano, he gives up 2 runs in his inning of work, including that bomb. Orion Kirkering along with Daniel Robert. They both lend a scoreless inning, and if you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, overall for the season, it has been an overwhelming campaign, but what has been underwhelming has been favorites recently. Since the All-Star break, favorites are 40 and 53 on the money line, hitting at 43%. That is just miserable. And then the under rate has actually been relatively solid since the All-Star break. 46 unders, 42 overs, and you have had, if my math serves me correctly, 5 pushes from there. And then if you look overall for the season, the under rate is back up to 52.4%. 783 unders, 710 overs. Meanwhile, favorites hitting at 57% on the money line, 877 and 662. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we're all getting trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we do chat with one of our good friends, John Jansen, who does such great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beeson Family Podcast.
Not all meals are created equal. For instance, breakfast has the spicy egg McMuffin for a limited time, and lunch doesn't. McDonald's breakfast comes first. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beeson Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got John Jansen aboard, who does such amazing work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Does a little bit of everything over there, though. He takes a look at the NBA front with Philadelphia 76ers, which that's going to be interesting to take a look at, to say the least. Obviously, college football is going to be in our lives. He does a great job there. Philadelphia Eagles, you name it, he does it. And you're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at JJansen, the number 34 altogether. And John, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Greg. It is the time of the year to be looking at college football, but also we're getting to trade deadline and also the final playoff pushes for these teams. So yeah, it's an exciting time, Greg.
It is a very exciting time because we are starting to see some trade deadline moves happening as the Arizona Diamondbacks got it started late Thursday on the fact that they did trade away one of their big guys in Josh Naylor. He goes on over to the Seattle Mariners. And do you think that perhaps Sunday might be the day that we really start to see some fireworks? Because I do think that with it being a travel day for a lot of these teams after the Sunday series all wrap up, I think that that's when we could really start to see some real sparks of fly. And I think that the Diamondbacks, they just gave us the appetizer on Thursday.
Yeah, it's so far right. It's just been a lot of the appetizer stuff, as you're saying. Nothing too big yet. It's going to be how teams end up going after the reliever market. We already saw Gregory Soto go, but Soto's not really the big one. We're still waiting for like the big ones to be happening. The interesting one for the Phillies, though, there's also a rumor about Nick Castellanos potentially with Kansas City. The rumor, I don't know if he goes to Kansas City. I don't know where the rumor essentially came from, but there is rumors of like Nick Castellanos being out there. So I think the Phillies are in kind of a weird spot where they're willing to go to great lengths to get to what they think they need, to where they need. So not to say Castellanos gets moved. I think that would be a really odd move to happen, but it's not surprising that there's rumors about something like that. And of course, about all of their prospects and Dombrowski being willing to let go of everyone. Phillies are willing to go all in. It's really interesting to hear that because, as we have talked about a lot, that the relievers are going to be the big ones. A lot of teams are going to need to put a lot of chips in to get them. And the Phillies at least seem willing to do that.
Yep, with the Philadelphia Phillies, I think that it is going to be so big that they shore up the bullpen because even if they do move a guy like a Nick Castellanos, I still think that they're fine in terms of hitting. I feel like we were both on the same page that they could use that power bat, maybe that guy that'll give them more like 25 to 30 homers because it feels like you've got Kyle Schwarber and a whole bunch of guys that they're doing an okay job with the power, but haven't necessarily been amazing as it's been a little bit of an up and down year for Bryce Harper as well, especially with the injuries. But I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what relievers are going to be out there on the market because there's just not a lot of great relievers on these teams that are going to be sellers. Like, look mainly at the Arizona Diamondbacks, Chicago White Sox, teams like that. And I think that it's going to be very much an arms race to be able to acquire these guys.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's so limited in the kind of arms you can get and really the arms that everybody's going to be looking for. Because it's not like you're replacing or you're trying to get depth arms. Gregory Soto was a depth arm. Like, that's somebody you just want to have in the bullpen just to be able to throw out there every so often, low leverage innings. But what most teams are looking for, and I think what the Phillies are looking for, the Mets, the Dodgers, everybody who is contending in the AL or the National League, they're looking at high leverage bullpen arms. And the Phillies specifically, they lost one of those. Now, they've been doing pretty good. I will admit the bullpen has stabilized a little bit. Ryan Kerkering has done a great job on the back end of the bullpen. So they do have a high leverage guy. I think, though, where you start to run into problems is they don't have very many. They have like one or two. They go for Strom a lot. They go with Ryan Kerkering a lot. But you can tell that they're kind of missing Jose Alvarado. So that's where the Phillies' necessity comes in getting that high leverage bullpen arm. And I think the good thing is, too, they have gotten Bryce Harper back healthy, and Bryce Harper is hitting lots of home runs, lots of power. He's slugging, and that's something the Phillies really haven't had since he's been absent, other than Kyle Schwarber. So I think it slowly becomes, for a lot of these teams, and the Phillies especially, they're all going after a high leverage arm. This isn't depth pieces. They need somebody to eat up big time innings in the playoffs. And it's just, there's going to be a lot of teams after that and not a lot of arms willing or on the market to be able to get.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that it's going to be interesting to look at this Phillies team moving forward because you have to figure that the guy that started on Friday in Taijuan Walker, he is going to be one of those guys that's probably going to be utilized in the bullpen if he does make the postseason roster. And when it comes to what we're going to be getting on Saturday, the Phillies do want to see another good start out of Ranger Suarez after he was a little bit roughed up in his previous start, goes up against the Yankees and Marcus Stroman as a little bit of a slight favorite. How do you take a look at the way that Ranger Suarez has been performing? And is there a little bit of a fear that perhaps his last start where he did get banged around a little bit might be a sign of regression, or do you think that might have been a little bit more of a one-off as Suarez, as we know, a little bit more of a pitcher contact guy than what you're going to find for a lot of dominant pitchers?
I do want to see a little bit more of a sample size just to see if this is starting to become a problem because he has given up a lot of hits in the last couple of starts. He gave up 6 2/3 innings, gave up 7 hits against San Diego. The Phillies lost that game, gave up 3 earned runs. And after that, 4 1/3, 9 hits, 6 earned runs against the Angels. And the thing is, too, he's walking a lot. So that's the one thing he's usually really good at. He doesn't walk a lot. He's aggressive in the strike zone. He's pitching to contact, as you just said. So he gets into a lot of trouble when he starts to walk, where he starts to nibble the corners a little bit. It's not like I think it's ever a problem where he gets hit too hard. Problem is when he starts nibbling around the corners, when he starts trying to be too perfect, then he starts walking guys. And then that's where the unlucky hits from a ground ball pitcher or a contact pitcher really starts to hurt you. So I think he's got to cut down the walks. He's been really good. Just think of this. In the entire month of June, he gave up 7 walks. So far in the month of July, just 3 starts, he's already given up 9. He has to cut that down, and if he does cut that down, I think he'll be fine. But this is one where I need to see like another game or two more sample size to think maybe this is starting to become a problem.
Yep, and it is going to be important that Ranger Suarez gives them a good start on Saturday against the Yankees, as John Jansen, who does great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, is joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And I think that it is so interesting for the Phillies this series against the Yankees because, as we know, they are tightly knotted up in a race against the other New York team and the Mets with regards to the series, with regards to the division right now. And how do you take a look at that race and the next few days? Because we know that the Mets have deep pockets. We know that they're going to be willing to give a lot of resources to be able to improve this team. And it does feel like the Phillies are going to be very willing to be able to spend / give some prospects as well to be able to do so. And I think that this is going to be such a critical next few days for the Phillies, both on the field and with regards to what the GM and the front office does.
It really is, and I think it's all going to come down to that. Now, I think with the Phillies starting to maybe become more of a problem, too, is the bottom of the lineup. they do need probably some depth pieces in the lineup or some guys that they're willing, again, if they're going to go all in, if this is like the attitude the Phillies are going to go for. And as you just mentioned, the Mets with Steve Cohen, they're going to spend, they're going to figure out. I mean, they're going to trade all the prospects they can because they know prospects aren't where they're going to be good. They know they're going to be good when they spend a lot of money. So they have no problems getting rid of anybody in the minor leagues and in the farm system. Phillies are a little bit more timid at times because their pockets have been deep, but their pockets aren't as deep as the Mets or the Yankees or some other teams that you would think of that have really deep pockets. The Phillies have spent a lot in recent years ever since they really signed Bryce Harper. That's not the kind of team that they are. So I think they've been a little bit more timid. To me, this has to be an all-in thing. The Mets are going to get what they need to. I think the Phillies, if they're going to be able to compete. Now, I think they can still win the division this year. I think their starting rotation is set up for it. And now that Harper's in the lineup consistently, I think you're going to get better lineup performance out of the Phillies. July has been kind of a rough month for them. They've been around the middle of the pack so far in the month of July. I think that's going to get better. And obviously, Bryce Harper being back and healthy and hitting extremely well so far has a lot to do with it. But they could potentially use another bat and to feel secure about the National League East. It's going to have to be maybe not only a relief pitcher. And we've seen a lot of this. Like I see a lot of, if the Phillies are going to go after a Mason Miller, get a Brent Rooker. Or if the Phillies are going to have to go after a Clase or Emmanuel Clase, go after Stephen Kwan as well. There's been a lot of like match a bullpen arm with an outfield bat. But that's going to be extremely hard to do. I still think as long as they're able to get the arm, that's the bigger thing for the postseason. And I think things will work itself out in the National League East for the division race, just because I think the starting rotation is too good and that much better than the Mets.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned Emmanuel Clase and Stephen Kwan, because I think the big question is, if you're the Cleveland Guardians, are you looking to sell right now? Because it just feels like it's a very open MLB this year. Like a lot of people want to talk about, oh, it's an open National League, it's an open American League, but it just doesn't feel like there's really any sort of dominant teams this year. Yes. With the Brewers right now having a top record in all of baseball and just lost on Friday to the Miami Marlins, it just feels like if you're somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 and if you have just any sort of one good aspect of things, whether that be pitching, whether that be hitting, you have a shot this year to be able to make a run, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the problem, is so many teams are in it, especially in the American League. So many teams can still get into the wild card and still chasing that. And it's tough to give up too. Same thing in the National League. So many teams within it. Really, the only team that we know that are sellers and have good enough pieces to sell is Arizona. I think I saw a rumor that like they're willing to let go of like 5-6 players this trade deadline. So that's the only team you can kind of look at and think, okay, well, they're willing to let go of like Eugenio Suarez. They already let go of Naylor. Some moves that some players that you already know that are on the market and a team willing to move. Kind of the tough thing to predict is what teams are going to be willing to, or at least willing in a way that Arizona is, right? Willing to just let go of anything. They know they're not. They know they are sellers at the deadline. They know they maybe need to move all these pieces because, like Cleveland, you could end up doing a bit of a reboot. You could end up moving things around and then trying again within the next few years. But also, they're kind of in the wild card race and they're not completely out of it. So it's going to be interesting to see how many teams are sellers, but how many players they're willing to part with and how many good players they're willing to part with. And I think that's going to be kind of narrowing the field a little bit in the trade deadline. I don't think there's going to be teams like Arizona willing to trade a bunch of pieces that are viable enough for some of these postseason teams to want and to make big impacts.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. With Arizona, them trading away Josh Chandler a few days ago, that shows them that, hey, they are open for business. They are ready to go. And who else is going to be willing to do so? That's anyone's guess, as the Colorado Rockies did trade away Ryan McMahon. That was very much to be expected with the Colorado Rockies. You figured that they were not going to be a team that was going to be holding on to too much of anything other than maybe Hunter Goodman. But I do think that it's just really interesting to take a look league-wide at things. And is there maybe one of those teams that is on the fringe of a wild card spot? Maybe they're holding one, but just barely, or they're on the outside looking in, that you do feel a little bit bullish about here in the coming months?
Yeah, that's a really good question. St. Louis is always going to maybe catch my attention a bit, just because that's a franchise and a team that has been able to kind of figure these circumstances out. And I've been really impressed. It's not an overpowering lineup, right? It's not like I look at the Cubs and, the Cubs are just an overpowering lineup. It's just top through bottom. They're slugging everything, but it just seems like they have a decently consistent lineup. These guys that I really like, Contreras, Donovan, Alec Burleson, which, by the way, went to the same school I did, East Carolina.
Nice.
I've seen him for a while, and he can hit. He's up to an 800 OPS. They are getting really good production out of these guys. At least, like, it's a good enough of a lineup that you can pair with, what Sonny Gray's been doing this season, or at least a starting rotation that gives them a chance. And I think it does become like a pretty interesting team. And they've been in a really tough division. They're battle tested. The Brewers have been extremely, extremely good this season. The Cubs have been extremely, extremely good this season. So it is going to be tough maybe to see wins because they are going to play the Central more. But it's a team that's battle tested and a team that I feel will make some noise if they were to get into a wild card spot.
Yep, and with the St. Louis Cardinals, I will say, rough look for them over the week, losing a series to Colorado Rockies, getting shut out in that game. That's a little bit less than tremendous, but I do think that out there in the NL Central as well, and in the National League in general, that Brewers team is currently leading the league with regards to their win percentage. I think that they're a team that's doing for a little bit of regression, and I think that there's a lot of teams that might be holding either wild card spots or holding division leads that might be doing for a little bit of regression, and I do think that this could be the year where if you're looking to take some long shots on teams to be able to make the playoffs, win the division, what have you, that it could be very fruitful.
Yeah, it really could. There are a lot of teams that are in these races. And the American League interests me because I think one of the big ones, I think you're right about some of these. It's mostly Boston. Like, I just don't think Boston is capable of holding that spot, but also is Texas, who is a game and a half back, and Tampa Bay a game and a half back, Cleveland's 3 back, Kansas City's 4.5 back. I feel confident that any of these teams are able to hold a spot if they get it. And at any point, a team like Cleveland could end up taking a wild card spot. So yeah, the American League especially, there's a part of me that wishes Baltimore was a little bit closer because they have a lineup still, young lineup that at any point can get so hot that they are able to get into a race, but the pitching is just going to be too big of a kind of Achilles heel for them to get over. There is a handful of teams in the American League that I'm just not sure and that are in the mix and that I don't feel confident at all to hold any spot. And that could really be a revolving door for the final spot in the wild card.
Yep, no question about it. It's going to be interesting to see what we get here in the backstretch of the regular season. We've got about 2 months away until we get the postseason all set. We've got a few days until the trade deadline comes about. So it is big times in baseball. And John, I know you're hard at work on so many different fronts. Obviously, taking a look at what the Phillies are doing in baseball. I know you do a tremendous job with your college football work as well, and so much more. So let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people are able to follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, you can follow me at JJansen34 on Twitter. You can see all of my stuff there. Yeah, going to be getting more into college football. Getting started, already having talks. Villanova is getting started up for football and basketball. So another Villanova season over at Fox Sports Radio Philadelphia that we're going to be doing as well. So very excited about that, being in the studio for all of those. So yeah, it's Greg, we're getting into the best part of the sports calendar. Meaningful baseball, good football. It's an exciting time. So yeah, you can follow it all at JJansen34.
It's always a lot of good, clean family fun whenever John's aboard. He does such a great job taking a look at baseball. He's going to be an ace when it comes to covering all of the college schools out there in the Philadelphia/Pennsylvania area as well. And every single time Mr. John joins me, he lends such great insight. So big thanks to John for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this baseball Saturday as we touch them all.
Not all meals are created equal. For instance, breakfast has the spicy egg McMuffin for a limited time, and lunch doesn't. McDonald's breakfast comes first. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by John Jansen, who does such great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Going to be interesting to see what the Phillies do over the next few days. Certainly what we get in terms of Mets versus Phillies in that NL East race is going to be great, and really both playoff races out there in the American League and the National League going to be rambunctious, and he's got his finger on the pulse pulse of it all. So big thanks to John for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Saturday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So how about if we get things started with 9:51 and 52 on the card. The Arizona Diamondbacks on the road against the Pittsburgh Pirates as Andrew Heaney walks the plank for the Buccos and Merrill Kelly goes for Arizona. 8.5 is the total. Over is -120 and the under is even with Arizona -123 to -132 favorites. Right around +108 to +115. That number on the Buccos, and I'm going to be willing to lay with Arizona, set them at a -142. We know that they're sellers at the deadline. That became apparent when they traded away Josh Naylor a few days ago, and they might trade away a piece or two before this game, but you know that they're probably going to be able to get a king's ransom for Eugenio Suarez, so he's going to be in lineup, 36 home runs, and you do have Corbin Carroll, who's been slumping a little bit since coming off the injury list. Still overall for the season, though, hitting at .250 with 21 bombs. Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte. He's been able to give you a home run every about 12.5 at-bats. He's been supplying north of a 370 on base, and you've got a lot of guys that do move the line, as Geraldo Perdomo gives you about a 380 on base. You've had some good production as well out of even some like an Alec Thomas, who does a consistent job of getting on base. Randall Grichuk is one of these guys that will probably see more at-bats. I think that the offense is going to be just fine. They've been in the top 5 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, and for Merrill Kelly, this guy has been very rock solid all season long. Uptick with his swing and miss stuff, 8.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, allowing less than a home run per 9 innings, and for Merrill Kelly, throughout his career, he's always been a significantly better pitcher when he's been at home rather than away from home. He has reversed those splits, though, this year. 3.24 road ERA compared to a 3.39 home ERA, and when he's been on the road, Merrill Kelly giving up in that neighborhood about 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. Meanwhile, for Andrew Heaney, things have just went straight down the toilet bowl for him. Now, I will say for Andrew Heaney, he has also been able to do a much better job when he has been at home rather than on the road, but he's now rocking a 5.03 ERA. Swing and miss stuff has been way down. 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3.1 walks per 9 innings. The bugaboo for him has always been given the deep ball, 1.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. He has now allowed 3+ runs in 4 out of his last 5 starts. But again, with Heaney, 3.58 home ERA, 6.45 ERA on the road and at home. Heaney's given up about 1.1 to 1.2 home runs per 9 innings when he has been away from home. Boy, he is giving up over 2 home runs per 9 innings. So I did set the Diamondbacks at a -142. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the money line, and I am cautious with this over because with the Pittsburgh Pirates, they are dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. You've got 3 guys on the roster who have more than 4 home runs this season. That'd be Andrew McCutchen, Brian Reynolds, and also Oneil Cruz. And Oneil Cruz is a part of a cavalcade of guys like Henry Davis, Jared Trollo, Alexander Canario that are all hitting at 220 or lower. So that's been rough, though. Tommy Pham now hitting about a 255. You've been able to get some good on base out of the likes of an Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, but I mean, he's been in the 9 spot all season long, so I'm not sure why that's been, but that's I do like this spot for the over, especially with the fact that you've got a pair of bullpens that have been highly suspect, the Diamondbacks being much more suspect than the Pittsburgh Pirates, but you have seen Caleb Ferguson start to act up a little bit more. Dennis Santana and David Benner are now giving you a sub-3 ERA, so they've been pretty solid in this Pirates bullpen. Pirates 10th in terms of bullpen ERA since June 1st, so they've been able to give you some solid performances there for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Running outside of Shelby Miller, who has a sub-2 ERA overall this season. It's been a big giant adventure for them, especially with Justin Martinez being on the injured list. You've had these guys like an Andrew Saalfrank, who I actually do like. He's got a little bit of upside, but I mean, he still needs to put it all together. He needs to get some work in. They've been utilizing Anthony DeSclafani as a long guy. He's got above a 4 ERA along with these guys like Jake Woodford, Jalen Beeks and company. So I do like this total over, and I do like the Diamondbacks on the money line. 953, 954 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers do play host to the Miami Marlins as Jansen Junk hopes to not live up to his name for Miami, and you've got Jose Quintana on the bump for the Brewers, and the Brewers are a favorite of anywhere between -157 to a -172, +140 to +146 is that number on Miami. 8.5 is the total, over and under both at -110, and for the Brewers, I made their money line a -163. Now, I always have to do this when you have only the initial FanDuel openers with regards to the run line, and that's always very highly suspect, to say the least. But right now, we're seeing that initial run line for the Brewers laying a run half at a plus 128, and I'd be willing to take a shot. I'm willing to go to a plus 118 or higher with regards to this run line for Jose Quintana. He's been just pitching to a lot of contact, and I do think that that's going to nip him in the bud a little bit, especially going up against a Miami Marlins team that has some very demonstrative home and road splits with regards to their offense. You have actually got that with the Milwaukee Brewers as well. For the Marlins, it's a little bit less pronounced, but still, entering into the day on Friday, averaging about 4.9 runs per game away from home, just under 3.7 runs per game at home, while the Brewers leading the league in runs per game away from home, 5.4 runs per game compared to 4.16 runs per game at home. So clearly both of these teams have been at their best when they've been on the road, and for the Miami Marlins, it is a case where they don't have a lot of power hitters, and the same actually goes for the Milwaukee Brewers. There's actually a striking amount of similarities with both of these teams, but getting back to Mr. Jose Quintana, he's only been dishing out about 6 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he's not necessarily the world's greatest command pitcher either, as he's been giving out 3.6 walks per 9 innings, 3.49 ERA, but closer to a 4.52 fielding dependent, has given up 3+ runs in now 4 out of his last 5 starts. And then on the flip side, you've got a guy in Jansen who's really been doing a nice job of not hurting himself. He doesn't give up the deep ball, and he doesn't give up walks. For Jansen, he's actually a former Milwaukee Brewer, by the way, but he's given up in his 11 total appearances across 55 1/3 innings, 1 home run, and 5 walks. So, that has been relatively ridiculous. Now, I will say for Jansen, not necessarily a strikeout artist himself, 6.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. And again, he is backed up by a lineup that has been not necessarily generating a lot of power. Kyle Stowers has been amazing with this regard. 21 home runs. He's giving you an on-base percentage that's in that neighbor about a 375 or so. And then you do have a lot of guys that they find a way to move the line. Lee Mix a 370 on base. Xavier Edwards, the leadoff guy, has been able to about a 290. Otto Lopez has been able to give you over 10 home runs. He's hitting a 250. Dane Myers starting to regress a little bit, but finds way on. Augustin Ramirez, he's been able to give this team as well 14+ home runs. He's hitting about a 245. And then for the Brewers, it's been a game of stolen bases for them. Christian Yelich, Bryce Terang, Sal Frelick, Jackson Trio, all with at least 13 stolen bases this year. A big reason why this team has been able to have a lot of success on offense. They've been playing a lot of small ball and just have a lot of guys that they find a way on base. You take a look at what you got in the lineup on Friday, and out of their top 5 hitters, all but one of them at least a 335 on base. Christian Yelich has been the main catalyst for this offense with 19 home runs this season. Then you've been able to get some relatively good power out of Rhys Hoskins, who's been a little bit in and out of the fold, about 12 home runs this season. And ever since coming on over to the Brewers, Andrew Vaughn has been a little bit more respectable as well. You do have a guy in Bryce Terang who's been able to do a really nice job of just finding a way to move the line, get on base with that 350 on base. So it is an interesting circumstance with a pair of bullpens that, if you look overall for the season, their numbers aren't that great, but both of these teams have also been in the top 5 in terms of bullpen ERA since June 1st. You've had a lot of guys come on strong. Now, Lake Picard is on the paternity list. Congratulations to him, but he, Ronnie Enriquez, Anthony Bender give you a sub 325 ERA along Cade Gibson have been rock solid. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, you had Abner Uribe, Yoel Payams be big parts of the bullpen last year. They completely pooped the bed this year, so they had to mix and match with the likes of Aaron Ashby, Abner Uribe, Trevor McGill, Nick Mears give you below a 320 ERA. So did set the Brewers at a minus 163. I'm willing to take that plus 128 run line that I was seeing before, and did set my total at 8.8. I do think that both of these pitch contact guys give up some contact. So looking at the over and the Brewers run line, 955, 956 on the card. The Cardinals play host to the San Diego Padres, says Randy Vasquez goes for the Pods. Matthew Liberatore goes for the Cardinals. Cardinals find themselves as a mid-sized favorite here. This is shaking up quite a bit. Open up at a minus 145. Now we're up to a minus 155 to a minus 164. Plus 130 to plus 140. That number on the Pods. 9 is the total. Over is minus 125. Under is plus 105. At a plus 140, that was my buy point on the San Diego Padres. So I'm going to be willing to take them on the money line. Now for the Padres, they're in the bottom 6 in all of baseball in terms of runs per game away from home. And Randy Vasquez is doing for some regression. For Mr. Vasquez, 373 ERA, but a 540 fielding independent. He's getting 4.5 strikeouts at 4.3 walks per 9 innings. And no swing and miss stuff whatsoever, but he's keeping the ball in the yard. Give it up about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. And for Matthew Liberatore, he's doing for some positivity as well, as Liberatore has had some shaky starts, to say the least. 4.13 ERA, but closer to a 351 fielding independent. Really doesn't hurt himself. 2 walks and 0.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings, but it's been on a rough run where he has given up at least 5 runs in 4 out of his last 8 starts. Now, he's also had 4 starts in there where he's given up 2 runs or fewer, so it's been all or nothing with him, and it is a Cardinals lineup that really just doesn't apply a lot of boom themselves. They're in the bottom 8 in all baseball in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, as nobody on this roster has been able to dish out more than 13 home runs. Now, you do have a lot of guys that are sitting in that neighborhood of between 10 and 13 home runs, runs, but Nolan Arenado, even though he's been able to give you a double-figure amount of bombs, he's only getting about a 240. Now, I did lie. Wilson Contreras is actually up to 14 home runs, so we'll give the credit where it is due. He's been able to find a way on base. He's been able to give you about a 340 or so with regards to that on base. And then Alec Burleson, 12 home runs. He and Brendan Donovan hitting above a 285. You need a little bit more from these guys at the bottom of the lineup, though. Jordan Walker, Victor Scott, as young guys, they haven't necessarily stepped up too much for this team. And then with the San Diego Padres, again, bottom 6 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game away from them, mainly because Jason Hayward did not pan out. They had to DFA him, so the last outfield spot has been a little bit of an adventure, and then the entire catcher spot has been an issue. Jose Iglesias is not what he was with the Mets last season, that's for sure, but trio of guys, Gavin Sheets, Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, all with at least 14 home runs. Machado and Tatis both above a 340 in terms of their on-base. Luis Rise is hitting a 288. You expect a little bit more out of him, but it's still relatively rock solid, and Jackson Merrill is giving you good on-base along Jake Cronenworth. Both of these guys north of 325 on base, but not necessarily a lot of power there. But what the Padres have going for them, number one team in all of baseball in terms of their bullpen ERA. This is despite the fact that you've had Robert Suarez actually blow quite a few games over the last 30 or so days, but you got the likes of David Morgan, Andre Morjon, Jason Adam, all give you a below a 235 ERA. Jeremiah Estrada is a below a 3 ERA. Brian Hoying says coming off the injured list, a sub 340, so these guys are stepping up in a big way. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, Ryan Helsley was giving up a lot of saves in the beginning part of the season. Believe that he blew 5 saves to begin the season, but he's rounded back into form. And then you have the likes of Matt Savanson, Jojo Romero, Phil Matone, Kyle Leahy, who've been able to dish out a sub 325 ERA of their own. So interesting circumstance here. Did set my total at an 8.8. I like the under, and at a plus 140 or higher, taking the Pods on the money line. 957, 958 on the card. The Mets are on the road against the Giants. Robbie Ray says hip hip hooray to another start, and great name. David Peterson goes for the Mets, and the Mets are a underdog of between even money to a plus 102. Meanwhile, you've got between minus 115 to a minus 121 on the San Francisco Giants. 7.5 is the total. Under is minus 120, and the over is even in. I did set the Giants at a minus 124. I'm going to be willing to roll with them on the money line. David Peterson has been a very reliable pitcher this season, by the way. He's not necessarily getting a lot of strikeouts, as his strikeouts per 9 rate is at a 7.6, but he's giving up just a half home run per 9 innings, doing an amazing job of inducing soft contact. 290 ERA to a 335 fielding dependent, and he enters having given up 2 earned runs over the course of his last 3 starts. Did have a few rough ones on the road against Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. That is something that you do want to be cautious with Peterson. It feels like he's just been a lot better when he's been at home this season. 191 home ERA with 2 home runs allowed in 61 and a third innings. Still giving up less than a home run per 9 innings on the road, but that ERA does balloon up to a 4.02. And then for Robbie Ray, he has been very much at home in San Francisco throughout his career. So he's had a little bit of an issue giving up the deep ball. So he was very happy to go on over to San Francisco, where he's given up only about 1.1 home runs per 9 innings this year, way down from his career numbers. Now his strikeout numbers are down, 9.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 292 ERA, 377 fielding dependent, with 2 runs or fewer allowed in now 4 out of his last 5 games. But you look specifically at what he's been able to do in San Francisco this season, a 253 ERA, and he's giving up less than a home run per 9 innings, and then on the road, that balloons up to a 340. And for the Giants, the bullpen is starting to regress a little bit, but this is still a bullpen that does rank in the top 3 in all of baseball in terms of their ERA. You've got the likes of Randy Rodriguez, Eric Miller, Camilo Duvall, Tyler Rogers, who have been able to give you a sub 325 ERA. Spencer Bivens, as a long guy, has been acting up for this team a little bit, but you do have an offense that I think is going to start to come alive a little bit. You had that multi-home run game from Rafael Devers after he had 2 home runs in his first 30 games with the team, so that was a little bit less than tremendous. But for Willy Adames, he's been able to really hit a surge. 8 home runs now in his last 25 games. Still has been overall rough for the season, but you like to see him rounding into form, especially with the likes of Matt Chapman, Jung-Ho Lee, Wilmer Flores, Mike Yastrzemski, only between about a 235 to a 246. Now, credit to Mr. Yastrzemski and Chapman, both of these guys above a 330 on base, and Chapman has been able to give you 14 home runs. And for this San Francisco Giants team, I do think that they're going to be able to do an okay job of holding down a Mets lineup that has been very top-heavy this season. For the Mets, you've got a quartet of guys who are supplying you with 18-plus home runs. Obviously, you've got Juan Soto and Pete Alonso being the chief among them, and for Mr. Alonso, he's been able to give you about a 370 on base, and then you've been able to get just below a 400 on base out of Juan Soto. Francisco Lindor now hitting just a 250, up to 19 home runs. Alonso Nimmo, who's been able to hit for about a 265, but then the bottom guys have been a little bit rough. Brett Beatty's give you a little bit more, up to 11 home runs, hitting about a 240, but Mark Vientos, Tyrone Taylor, the entire catcher spot, hitting below a 220, and Jeff McNeil, solid 350 on base. He's been able to give you you some relatively solid power, but that said, I do think that in this spot, Giants find a way to get the job done in a lower scoring game. So I told 7.3, I like the under and the Giants on the money line. 959, 960 on the card. The Detroit Tigers play us the Toronto Blue Jays as Kevin Gausman goes for the Jays and Tariq Skubal is on the bum for Detroit. Detroit, a massive -$2 to -210 favorite, and +168 to +180 is that number on Toronto. 7 is the total. Under is between -115 to a -120, and the over is between even and -105. And I'm going to be willing to take a shot here on Toronto. I did set them as a underdog of a +166, so +167 or higher was my entry point there. You do have a guy in Tariq Skubal who's obviously been absolutely amazing, and the Tigers, they really do need him to be amazing because it has been a rough run for them. For Skubal, 2.19 ERA, 191 fielding dependent, strikeout to walk ratio of 10.25, just absolutely insane what we have seen there. And for Skubal, he has given up 0 or 1 runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts. Has also given up 4+ runs in 2 out of his last 5 starts. So something to be mindful of. And Kevin Gausman was having himself a relatively rough, we're going to call it June into very early July, but he seems to be rounding into form. 200 runs or fewer in 4 out of his last 5 starts. And for Gausman, overall for the season, 4.01 ERA, but the fielding dependence more around a 3.85. He does a relatively solid job of keeping things out in front of him. He's given up about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. Swing and miss stuff is a little bit down with about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. And Kevin Gausman has been a guy that throughout his career has had some funky home and road splits. This year, much more even. He's actually on the road giving up fewer home runs than he is at home. On the road, he's given up about 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. And for the Detroit Tigers, it's been a case where they have been very much missing Kerry Carpenter. Carpenter, rock solid hitter, has been able to give you 16 home runs, and they still do have a pair of guys that are above 20 bombs, as you've got that out of Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson. Torkelson, 22 bombs, about a 340 on base, and then Green, 25 home runs, hitting about a 280, and then just a lot of guys that just find a way to be able to move a line, get on base. Stone Dingler, Gleyber Torres, Zach McKinstry, Javi Baez, allowing at least a 268, but I mean, it's just been an adventure for this team. Juancio Perez has begun to regress a little bit as well, and then you've got a lineup on the flip side for the Toronto Blue Jays who has been very interesting. Entering into the series, averaging 3.85 runs per game away from home compared to 5.35 runs per game at home. The biggest home and road split between offenses that you're going to find in the American League, but these guys are really starting to heat up as now you've got a quartet of guys who've done a nice job, give you 13 plus home runs, George Springer being chief among them. How about 17 home runs at about a 375 on base, and then Edison Barger, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero, all between 13 and 14 home runs, allowing at least a 273, with Guerrero being able to supply you with that on-base percentage of a 393. And then don't call his name, Oleander Kirk. He's been able to hit for north of a 300. Ernie Clemente has been able to hit a 285. So got a lot of guys finding way on base. Tyler Heineman has been hitting a 335. I don't know if that's sustainable, but the Blue Jays also do have the bullpen advantage here as well. They've been a top 8 team in bullpen ERA. You've had Justin Brule make some appearances as when he's been out there, Nick Sandlin, who's been dealing with injury, Brandon Little, Uriel Rodriguez, or I'll give you a sub 275 ERA, Braden Fisher, more around about a 3 ERA. And for the Detroit Tigers, you look since June 1st, this has been a bottom 10 team in terms of their bullpen ERA, as Tommy Kahnle has been miserable for this team recently. That's putting it very politely. He's up to above a 4.5 ERA. You've had Brad Herter, the long guy slash sometimes opener, be very solid, as he and Will Vest are both below a 3 ERA. And you've been able to get some good innings out of the likes of Chase Lee, Brendan Hennefy, and company. But I do think that in the end, the Blue Jays are being a little bit undervalued here. They've gotten hot. I set my total at 7.2, so liking the over, and I'm liking the Jays with that plus money on the money line. 961, 962 on the card. It is the Athletics, and they're going to be on the road facing off against the Houston Astros, as you've got Mr. Jacob Lopez on the bump for the Athletics, and Hunter Brown goes for Houston. Houston is a very sizable favorite, between -196 to a -208. Between +168 to a +182 is that number on the Athletics. 7.5 is the total. Over is between -115 to a -120, and the under is between even and -105. And for this total, I did set mine at 7.8. I'm going to be staring down the gun barrel at the over for Jacob Lopez. He's actually been really good for the Athletics. One of the few guys that really doesn't have demonstrative home and road splits, as well as a lot of guys have had a difficulty pitching in Sacramento. Recognize that the 4.60 ERA is not necessarily savory, and that's mainly because he is giving up 1.6 home runs and 3.6 walks per 9 innings, but has been an absolute strikeout artist. How about getting about 11.1 strikeouts per 9 innings? He has been a little bit up and down recently. 4+ runs allowed in 3 out of his last 5 starts, but I do think that he's going to be able to do a solid job against an Astros team that has been solid all season long, but there's not really much about them that you really are looking at and you're fearful of, for lack of a better term. As for the Astros, Isak Paredes has been rock solid, 19 home runs, on-base percentage about a 360. Jose Altuve starting to look like the Jose Altuve of old, with a 280 average, 17 home runs. You've got Yunier Diaz along with Christian Walker, both really not getting on base, sub 295 on base, but they have been able to give you 13 home runs apiece, not aiming for the world's worst average. Cam Smith has been able to give you about a 331 on base as well. So, I mean, you've got a lot of solid pieces, but you don't necessarily have fear struck into you with Yordan Alvarez dealing with the injury. Now, what the Astros have been able to do a very good job of, pitching out of the bullpen, top 5 team in terms of their bullpen ERA. You've had so many guys like Bennett Sosa, Josh Hader, Stephen Oker, Brian King, Brian Abreu, all these guys stepping up, give you below a 275 ERA. They're getting back Hector Neris, which I don't necessarily know how amazing that's going to be for them, but they've got Hector Neris, so there's that aspect of things. And for the Athletics, that is a big fear that you've got with this team. The Athletics have been really bad with their bullpen pitching. They have been a bottom 3 team all season long in terms of the ERA in the bullpen. Now, you do have Sean Newcomb, Michael Kelly, who have been able to do a nice job of supplying a sub 3 ERA. And Jack Perkins, as a long guy, it's only 6 appearances, but he's been able to give you a sub 3 ERA as well. Everyone else in this bullpen above a 380 in terms of this ERA. Even Mason Miller, Elvis Alvarado, Hogan Harris, the new long guy, and Oswaldo Bido. But you do have a relatively solid offense as well with the Athletics, as Nick Kurtz has been absolutely amazing. He's getting a home run every about 12 to 12 and a half at bats. He's hitting above a 285. That's been great. You've got Tyler Soderstrom, Brent Rooker, a combined 39 home runs. With Rooker, he's up to a 350 on base. Lawrence Butler not giving you necessarily the world's greatest on base, but he's up to 14 home runs as well as Shea Langoliers. So Shea has been banging, and when it comes to what you're able to get out of Hunter Brown, it's been a case where he's been really regressing recently, though I'm still relatively bullish on him overall. For Brown, he's got relatively good swing and miss stuff. His strikeouts per 9 rate hovering in that neighborhood of about a 10.9. He's been posting up a 257 ERA, 299 fielding independence. So again, you would like to see him be able to return to that form after he's given up 3+ runs in each out of his last 3 starts. But I do think that this is going to be a solid start for him. Now, with this total, I did set mine as 7.8 because we have been seeing bullpens giving up quite a few runs, and obviously that Hayes bullpen has been a little bit of an adventure. So I'm going to be in on the under. And if you're looking at laying a run F with the Astros, you're getting that at right now at a plus 102 on FanDuel. I think that you should be able to get a little bit of a better number. If I could get a plus 111, I'll be taking a look there, though. Right now, if I had to play this, I actually would be taking a look at the Athletics money line. I set my money line price at a plus 177. I'm seeing a plus 182. It's just getting to a point of no return on a guy like Lopez. So if I had to play this right now, and I think that it's going to be my play when it's all said and done, going to be looking at the Athletics on the money line and the 7.5 over. 963, 964 on the betting board. It is the Cleveland Guardians on the road against the Kansas City Royals. Chris with the K Bubich is on the bum for the Royals, and Tanner Bybee goes for Cleveland. Cleveland, an underdog of between plus 108 to a plus 114, minus 124 to a minus 132. The number on Kansas City, it is a total over its minus 120, and the under is even. And for Bubich, I did set him at a minus 143, so I'm going to be willing to lay with old Chris with the K Bubich. Now, obviously, for the Royals, it's been rough for their offense. 3 runs per game at home. That is dead last in the big leagues, but you do have a guy in Chris with the K Bubich who I think is going to be able to go out there and once again give you a relatively solid start. For Mr. Bubich, ERA of a 2.38. The fielding independent is a 2.76. 9 strikeouts at 2.8 walks per 9 innings, and allowing just a half home run per 9 innings. He's experienced a little bit of regression, but still, he has given up 3 runs or fewer in 17 out of his last 19 starts, so he is avoiding the blow-up starts. And on the flip side, you've got a guy in Tanner Bybee who just has not been the same pitcher when he has been away from home. For Tanner Bybee, about a 2.75 or so ERA at home. He's given up less than 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, but then when he goes on the road, he starts giving up bombs all of a sudden. 5.37 ERA with over 1.8 home runs per 9 innings. The Guardians bullpen has been able to round into form. Emmanuel Clase is back below a 3 ERA, so that's good. And for Cleveland, last year they were number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Obviously not that this year, but if you look since June 1st, they've been able to give you a 3.34 ERA. That's 9th in the league, so they're improving there. Eric Sobrowski coming off the injured list has been a big reason why we've had Hunter Gaddis be a little bit sketchy, and it's been an up and down season for so many of these guys as Paul Sewald is back on the injured list. Again, Kate Smith about a 3 or so ERA, so I think these guys have been relatively solid. And then for the Kansas City Royals, you've had both of your main guys in Carlos Estevez, Lucas Hursadge be a little bit shaky since the All-Star break, but both of these guys have been able to supply a sub 3.25 ERA along with Steven Cruz. John Schreiber is back to about a 3.12 ERA, so he's been solid. They're getting Hunter Harvey off the injured list as well, so that's going to be able to help them out. For the Royals, you just need these young guys to step up and be able to give you production, as you got Jack Caglione, John Rave, Nick Lofton, and Lofton right now deals with a concussion, lying below a 225. Haven't necessarily been able to get a lot of power out of these guys. So John Rave did, I believe, have a multi-home run game a few days ago, so shout out to him, but you have had the trio for this team in the middle be able to step it up. Salvador Perez, Vinny Pasquantino, Bobby Witt Jr., they're now starting to give you some power. Witt Jr., 14 home runs, 27 stolen bases, and a 340 on base. Perez, he's up to 18 home runs this season, but looks at the beginning of the month of July, I believe he got 8 home runs in his first 17 games, so he's really starting to find it. Vinny Pasquantino, 17 bombs, about a 270 batting average. You do need a little bit more from these bottom guys, you're just getting no power whatsoever out of the likes of Jonathan India, Drew Waters, Kyle Isbell, these guys hitting between a 242 to a 252, so it's an interesting circumstance here. I do think that for the Royals, they do find a way to get the job done in a lower scoring game. Maybe my total at 7.9. I like the under, and I do like the Royals on the money line. If this sounds like an insert, it is, because the game from Friday got rained out between the Guardians and the Royals. Looks like game number 1. This is what it's going to be. The early game is going to be exactly where we were supposed to get on Friday. Michael Wacha going up against Gavin Williams, and we do have a few initial openers that are up for this one. Right now, we are seeing Wacha and the Kansas City Royals anywhere between a -112 to a -120. The total is 8.5, under is -120, and the over is even. And between even money and -102 is that number on Cleveland. And I'm going to be sticking with the same plays that I did have for the Friday card, as I'm going to be willing to lay the number with the Royals. I did set them at a -133 on the money line. I do think that for Michael Wacha, he's going to be able to go out there, give you a relatively solid start. He's been pitching to a lot of contact this year, less than 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's just doing a nice job of not beating himself, unlike Gavin Williams. Now, Gavin Williams has a pretty respectable ERA. As a matter of fact, both of these guys have very similar ERAs right now. For Wacha, he's right around about a 371 with his ERA 354 for Gavin Williams, but Williams, a 453 fielding dependent, 5 walks per 9 innings. He is getting 9 punch-outs per 9, but he's also given up 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. For Gavin Williams, he has given up 3+ runs in 3 out of his last 5 starts. Meanwhile, for Michael Wacha, he comes in a little bit up and down, but as he starts to combine 2 runs allowed against the Mets and the Miami Marlins across 11 innings, and with both of these teams, you know that the offenses are going to be relatively rough. I still have a total of a 7.8, so seeing that 8.5 initial opener out there, I'm not going to go through all these specific players because I did that in the first breakdown, but I'm going to be willing to side with the Royals on the money line, and I'm going to be in on this total under as well, as I did set my total at a 7.8. 965, 966 on the card. The Angels play host the Seattle Mariners. George Kirby goes for Seattle, and Tyler Anderson is on the bump for the Halos. 8.5 is the total, over and under both at -110, with the Angels between +122 to a +132 is their number, and between -142 to a -150 is the number on Seattle. And with Seattle, I did set them at a -145. I'm going to be willing to lay that money line, as if you take a look at laying a run half right now with Seattle, obviously a FanDuel opener here, +112, I would need at least about a +115 to take a shot, and I would rather have a little bit of a chalkier money line here, just because things can always be a little bit of a roll of the dice. So I want to have that security with George Kirby. He's been very rock solid over his last few starts. Now, he has given up 4+ runs in 2 out of his last 5 starts, but he's given up 1 run or fewer in each out of the last 3, and he did have a little bit of a rough go of it against the Milwaukee Brewers, but he was really rolling for 5+ innings, and then they just kept him out there a little bit too long. He's been only giving up 2 walks per 9 innings, which is actually way up for his standards, but 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, fielding independent of a 366. Last time he faced off against the LA Angels, he actually got 14 strikeouts, so he knows these guys very well. It's an Angels lineup that is in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of on-base percentage at home, and for the Angels, it is an all-or-nothing team, as they've also been a top 5 team in terms of home runs on a per-at-bat basis, so you don't know what you're going to get. You're either going to get boom or you're going to get bust, as you've got Taylor Ward with 23 home runs, about a 308 on base. He's worked on that a little bit. Joe Adell setting fire to the rain, about a 305 on base, 21 home runs, but that batting average is starting to dip. Logan O'Hoppe, very happy about the 18 home runs that he and Mike Trout has. Trout 365 on base, but even he's hitting at 240. But for O'Hoppe, not so happy about the 280 on base. You've had Zach Neto do a nice job of the line, though, hitting at 275 with 15 home runs. Nolan Schuno finds a way on as well, but Luis Rengifo, 4 home runs at a 282 on base, and the big issue that you've got with the Angels team is the bullpen. Bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of their ERA. You've got Brock and Roll Burke and Kenley Jansen below a 3.55 ERA. Hunter Strickland was as well, but he had to hit the injured list, and from there, it's a lot of guys that are posting up above a 4.40 ERA. Reed Detmers is actually below that, so shout out to him, but Carson Fulmer, Connor Brogdon, Sam Bachman, Jake Eater, who they utilized as a long guy a few days ago, Jose Fermin. It's not been great, to say the least, and for Tyler Anderson, this guy's been doing for regression for so long, giving up 1.5 home runs, 3.5 walks per 9 innings. Right now, rocking a 4.43 ERA, but the fielding independent is still above a 4.75, and he has been very fortunate to not be stung by the amount of hard contact that he's given up more. He's only getting about 7.2 strikeouts per 9 innings and has to face off against a Seattle Mariners lineup that has been very good on the road. They're right now leading the American League with just under 5.4 runs per game when they are away from home, as big dumper Cal Raleigh, 39 home runs, above a 365 on base. You've had J.P. Crawford supply 375 on base. Randy Arozarena has been one of the hottest players in all baseball over the last month, up to a 350 on base, 19 home runs. Ori Polanco, Julio Rodriguez, both hitting about a 255 with 15 to 16 home runs apiece as well. And then even someone like a Ben Williamson, who's not giving you any sort of power whatsoever, he's finding a way to move the line, get on base, and like what I've seen out of Dominic Canzone, he's been in the lineup as well, hitting at 300. So circumstance we're with the Mariners. I did set them at a minus 145. I like their money line, and with this total, I did set mine at an 8.7. So you're at the 8.5. I'm in on the over. 967, 968 on the card. The Philadelphia Phillies are on the road facing off against the New York Yankees. Marcus Stroman is on the bump for the Yankees, and Ranger Suarez goes for the Phillies. And the Phillies are a very slim favorite, between minus 114 to a minus 121. Even money to plus 106 at number on the Yankees with a total of 9.5. Under is between minus 115 to minus 120. Over is between even a minus 105. And I'm willing to take a shot on the under. I did set my total at a 9.2. Now, Marcus Stroman has some pretty miserable home and road splits since he joined the New York Yankees. Since he joined the Yankees, his ERA is hovering around a 5 when he's at home, and it drops by about a full point and a half when he is away from home. So that's something that you do want to be mindful of. But for Stroman, since coming off the injury list, I'm not going to call him amazing, but you know what? He's made 4 starts, and he's allowed 3 earned runs or fewer in all of them. He's filled at least 5 innings in every one of them. Not a strikeout guy once again. He's getting 5.5 strikeouts to 3.6 walks per 9 innings, and since he's come off the injury list, he's actually done a solid job of keeping the ball in the yard. He's given up 3 home runs over the course of, if my math serves me correct, 21 innings, so he has given up in the neighborhood about 1.3-ish home runs per 9 innings, but that's not the world's worst thing for Stroman. He does a good job of getting double play balls, and for Ranger Suarez, he's coming off of a relatively rough start last time out, but prior to his last rough start, he had given up 300 runs or fewer in each out of his last 12 starts. He overall for the season has been very rock solid. 8.5 strikeouts and 2.7 walks per 9 innings. He keeps the ball in the yard, giving up 0.6 home runs per 9 innings, and for Suarez, overall a 2.66 ERA. You take out that first start where he was coming off the injury list, he's got an ERA that's hovering more around a 2. Now, for the Philadelphia Phillies, they need to do a better job with this bullpen. Ryan Kerkering, pretty much the lone guy out there in that bullpen who's been able to give you an ERA that is below a 3, but you've been able to have Matt Strom along with as well Tanner Banks be able to supply a sub 350 ERA. Max Laser has actually been pretty solid in this bullpen as well. It's been a case where Jordan Romano has just been miserable this year. Seth Johnson, he's in a small sample size, hasn't been too bad either, but want to see a little bit more there. And you've had Taiwan Walker, the starter from yesterday in the bullpen. He's actually been able to do a pretty formidable job as well. And for the Phillies, they do experience quite a bit of a dip with their offense when they're away from home rather than when they are at home. For the Phillies, they've been one of your top offenses at home with over 5.1 runs per game at home, about 4.05 runs per game away from home. But Kyle Schwarber is hitting everywhere. 34 bombs, north of a 375 on base. And then you do have a quartet of guys, Nick Castellanos, Trey Turner, Max Kepler, Bryce Harper, between 11 and 14 home runs. And Harper up to about a 378 with his on base. You've had Castellanos and Harper both hitting about a 270, and Trey Turner, 25 stolen bases, hitting a 290. Even someone like Armando Sosa has been able to move line for this team. Max Kepler has been a little bit miserable in terms of finding a way on base, but overall you've been able to get some solid offense there. And for the New York Yankees, as we know, this is one of the Death Star lineups that you're going to find out there in all of baseball. Currently averaging about 5.3 runs per game when they are at home, with Aaron Judge leading the way, 37 bombs, over a 450 on base, and hard to believe, but he's actually been regressing a little bit over the last week or two. But I mean, you've got a lot of guys around him that have been able to give you at least 13 home runs. 6 guys, as a matter of fact: Anthony Volpe, Jazz Chisholm, Cody Bellinger, Trent Grisham, Ben Rice, Austin Wells. Now for Wells and Volpe, they're giving you no average whatsoever, and we have seen Paul Goldschmidt just be very suspect over the last about 45 or so days in terms of finding a way on base. But Jazz Chisholm, a 340 on base, Cody Bellinger about a 335 on base, hitting a 285. So these guys have stepped up. And with the Yankees, you do have to have some question marks with this bullpen. Luke Weaver has looked a little bit better over the last few weeks after first few appearances coming off of the injured list. He was very much less than savory, but overall since June 1st, this is a Yankees bullpen that's 23rd in the big leagues in terms of ERA, and the Phillies are actually 12th. So that's something to be mindful of, with Yuri De Los Santos currently on the injured list for the Yankees. Tim Hill has been solid. He and Weaver both below a 275 ERA. JT Brubaker has actually been able to give you some solid innings. He can be utilized as a long guy as well, but still, I do think that you should have Ranger Suarez as a bit of a favorite in this spot. Marcus Stroman Stroman. He does pitch a little bit too much contact. I did set my money line at a minus 112. Right now I'm seeing a lot of minus 114, but do you think that when it's all said and done, I should be able to get that like minus 1 or 10 or so on the Phillies? So looking there on the money line. And with regards to this total, I did set mine at a 9.2. I'm going to be in on the under as well, by the way, for that Phillies run line. Only find that at a plus 125, so would not be wanting the run line here as we go 969, 970 on the card. The Rays are on the road against the Cincinnati Reds. And yes, we're on to Cincinnati, and they are on to Andrew Abbott getting the start for them, and Ryan Pepiot is on the bump for the Rays, and the Rays are a relatively small underdog here. You're going to be getting them between even money to plus 105 and between minus 113 to a minus 121. That number on the Reds, 9 is the total, over is minus 120, under is even, and I do like this total under. I set my total at 8.8, and for Andrew Abbott, I'm going to be willing to back him. He has just been really rock solid this year. He's a solid swing and miss guy, but he's not necessarily like an overpowering swing and miss guy, as he's been getting 8.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, but giving up less than a home run, 2.3 walks per 9 innings, and he just goes out there and he has been consistent all season long. He has given up 2 earned runs or fewer in, I believe now, all but 3 of his starts, so I mean that has been very big for the Cincinnati Reds team. He is backed up by a bullpen that has been a little bit touch and go. You've got Graham Ashcraft, who's giving you about a 3.60 ERA as a little bit of a long guy. I do like the fact that Emilio Pagan is not giving up too much of an ERA, but he does give up about 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. You always have to be mindful of that, but Taylor Rogers, Tony Santillan, these are guys giving you a ERA below a 3, though Lyon Richardson has been really regressing for this bullpen, but for the Reds, it's been a little bit of a wonder as they've been able to really sustain their offense this year. 12th in the league in terms of runs per game. They're actually averaging fewer runs per game at home rather than on the road, and they call it Great American Small Park, so that has not made a lot of sense, but that said, you've had Ellie De La Cruz be amazing, 357 on base, he's up to 18 home runs, and then a trio of guys, Austin the Say's Kid, Spencer Steer, Matt McClain, between 10 and 11 home runs. McClain hitting just at 220. You need a little bit more there, but TJ Friedel, Gavin Lux, between about a 360 to a 370 on base, they're finding a way to move the line. You need to get more out of some of these mix and match guys like Will Benson, Christian Encarnacion Strand, who they had to send down to the minor leagues because he was so bad, and to DFA Jameer Candelario. This entire bottom half of the lineup has been rough. You just don't know what you're going to be able to get out of these guys like 7 through 9, but that said, for the Cincinnati Reds, I do think that they're going to do a nice job. I'll be able to take it to a guy in Ryan Pepiot that is still doing for quite a bit of regression, even though Pepiot has been able to give you a pretty rock solid ERA. Overall for the season, he has been posting up a 3.59 ERA, getting about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 1.6 home runs allowed per 9 innings. That's been a bit of an issue. He is giving up less than 3 walks per 9 innings, but he's right around about a 4.30 in terms of that fielding independent. He is backed up by a Rays bullpen that is in the top 12 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, and this is a good bullpen in my opinion. Pete Fairbanks, Manuel Rodriguez, Garrett Clevenger, Eric Orze, these guys are supplying a sub-3 ERA. Mason Englert has been a little bit touch and go, but he can be utilized as a long guy as well. And for the Rays, this is a top 10 team in terms of runs per game. Junior Caminero, 26 home runs. He has been really raking for this team, hitting above a 260. Brandon Lau, he's been stuck on 19 home runs for quite a while because he just landed on the 10-day injured list on Tuesday, so that's a bit of an issue. But you do have Yandy Diaz, who's been able to hit for north of a 350 over the last 60 days. He's supplying the team with 17 home runs, and with Lau out of the fold, you do have less power, but you also have guys that are able to be shifty. They're able to get on base, like Jose Calabrio is seeing more time now, 33 stolen bases, 325 on base. Chandler Simpson is more out there in the outfield, but and he's swiping 31 bags. He's hitting above a 300 as well. You do have a few guys that you need a bit more from. Taylor Walls, you've had him hitting for about a 215. The entire catcher spot has been relatively miserable as well. But in the end, I do think that for the Cincinnati Reds, they get a nice start out of Andrew Abbott to get the job done. Set them at a minus 135. So like the Reds money line, and maybe I told an 80.8. So here at the 9, I'm in on the under. 971, 972 on the card. It is the Atlanta Braves, and they do hit the road. They're facing off against Seawalker, Texas Rangers. Kumar Rocker is on the bump for the Rangers, and Grant Holmes goes for Atlanta. Atlanta is a small underdog between plus 104 to a plus 110, minus 119 to a minus 126. That number on Texas. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. I actually made the Atlanta Braves a very small favorite here. I'm going to be willing to back them on the money line. I just have trust issues with Kumar Rocker. Maybe it's just a me issue, but I mean, for Kumar Rocker, he certainly has been much better than he was towards the beginning part of the season, but it's still a guy that I don't want to be backing on a regular basis. His swing and miss stuff has been all over the place this year. 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's given up 1.5 bombs per 9 innings. I will say he's given up 2 runs or fewer in 4 of his last 5 starts, so that's been pretty solid, but he's also been pitching a lot at home, and he's been facing off against some of the less than savory offenses in all baseball. Doesn't sound like it, but the Padres have have had a tough time being able to put bat to ball. The Pirates, he faced off against the Tigers when they were in their swoon as well. So there's a little bit of issue and a little bit of strife there. But on the flip side, you do have a guy in Grant Holmes who's been really getting a lot of swings and misses. For Holmes, the big issue that you've got with him is that he just gives out a lot of free passes. For Holmes, he's in that neighborhood about 4.2 walks per 9 innings, 9.8 strikeouts per 9, but he does give up about 1.3 bombs per 9 innings as well, 381 ERA compared to a 435 fielding pennant, and he has given up a combined 8 runs in his last 2 starts, but I do think that he's going to be able to go out here against a Rangers team that all of a sudden has been a hub with their offense. They're averaging over 5.2 runs per game in the month of July after it had been a really rough run prior to the month of July for them. But you've got Josh Smith now hitting at 275, and you've got a lot of guys that are just in that neighborhood of between 11 and 15 home runs. Wyatt Langford, Corey Seager, Jake Berger, Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia, and pretty much all these guys are in between about a 228 to a 235 overall for the season. But you look at what this team is doing in the month of July. Now, this was entering into the day on Friday, but entering into the day, team is collective, hitting about a 250 with a 320 on base. Corey Seager finally looks to be healthy after he spent some time on the injured list, and you've been able to get really good production out of Kyle Higashioka in this month, as he in a limited sample size has been hitting north of a 360, not drawing any walks whatsoever. But also for the Texas Rangers, this has been the number 1 bullpen in terms of ERA since the beginning of the month of July. Do have a lot of guys holding it down, like Hobie Milner, Chris Martin, Jacob Latz, who's been utilized as a starter and a long guy. Throw in there Robert Garcia. All these guys give you a sub-3 ERA. And then Sean Armstrong has been right around about a 3 as well. And for the Atlanta Braves, it's been an adventure with Rocio Iglesias, to say the least, as he's been posting up an ERA well above a 4 all season long. He has blown a lot of games for this team, but you've been able to get some good production out of the likes of Pierce Johnson, Dylan Lee. These guys give you a sub-3 ERA. Now, it's been an issue to where Desmond Hernandez is now on the injured list. That's not necessarily what you want to see, and it's been up, down, all around in terms of Aaron Bummer this year with his north of a 4 ERA, but that's up for the Atlanta Braves. Even though they are a bottom 10 team in terms of runs per game, I do think that the offense starts to find it a little bit more. Ronald Acuna Jr. up to 13 home runs at a 437 on base. Matt Olson, 370 on base. He's been able to supply the team with 18 home runs. Sean Murphy is actually hitting for a lot of power right now. Home run every about 14 at-bats, 325 on base. Austin Riley, he's been solid, hitting at 275. It's just been a case where you've had the bottom guys be absolutely awful. Nick Allen has 0 home runs this season, along with Alex Verdugo, and Verdugo has been in and out of the lineup, and they just, I'm pretty sure, let him go about a week or so ago, because I have not seen him in quite some time, so he's been out of the picture there. But that said, you've been having a pair of guys in Ozzie Albies along with Michael Harris, who are everyday players, hitting both below a 222. Neither of these guys with a double-figure amount of homers, and Michael Harris is hitting for a 237 on base. But I do think that in the end, the Braves find a way to get to Kumar Rocker and get the job done. Made my total at 8.7, so I like the over and the Atlanta Braves on the money line. 973, 974 on the card. You've got the Colorado Rockies on the road against the Baltimore Orioles. Trevor Rogers goes for the O's, and Antonio Senzatella is on the bump for Colorado. 9.5 is the total. Over and under between -105 to a -115. -250 to a -267 is that number on Baltimore. You're going to be getting between +208 to a +225 with that number on the Rockies, and my money line at -245 with the Orioles, and I was willing to lay up to a -130 on this run line. Right now, we're seeing the initial FanDuel opener out, and right now that is a -142, but they listed that money line at a -275. I do think that when it's all said and done, I should be able to get that -130 that I so rightfully desire, so we should be able to get in on that Orioles run line, as you've got a guy in Antonio Senzatella that we're going to call it what it is. He is getting banged around like a piñata this year. An ERA above a 6. It's not even like his ERA really goes down when he's on the road either. For Antonio Senzatella, he's posting up an ERA above a 6, both at home and on the road. So, it's been a case where even getting away from Coors Field has not done the trick for him. For Antonio Senzatella, he's only getting 4.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, 1.5 bombs per 9, just has been absolutely atrocious. 3+ runs allowed in each out of his last 4 starts, but Trevor Rogers has been absolutely amazing for the Orioles, as he's posting up a ERA that is below a 2. I don't know if it's quite sustainable, but he's only given up 2 home runs in 41 2/3 innings. He's done a nice job keeping the walks down. Not too much of a strikeout guy. He's below 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but overall is going out there, getting the job done time and time again. And again, this is a Rockies team that is dead last in the big leagues in terms of their on-base percentage away from him. Second lowest in terms of runs per game when they're on the road, as they're only generating about 2.9 to 3 runs per contest when they are away from him. This is despite the fact that you've got a trio of guys, Mickey Moniak, Ryan McMahon, and Hunter Goodman, who have been able to supply 15+ plus home runs this season, but the only guy that's really giving you a lot of the deep ball on the road is Goodman. 12 home runs when he's been away from home, hitting about a 290, and then you've got a steep drop off from there. Sergio Estrada was also hitting on the road, but he unfortunately landed on the injured list. Tyler Freeman has been hitting about a 300 on the road, but anyone else who has been just really in this lineup consistently, nobody else is really giving you above a 295 with regards to on-base percentage when they are on the road, like Mickey Moniak is hitting at 225, and then you've had Orlando Arcia when he's been out there hitting below the Mendoza line of 200 when he's been on the road. Michael Toglia has been hitting a $154, so I have a lot of issues there. And for the Baltimore Orioles, this team has been a completely different team with their offense at home rather than away from home. The Orioles are a bottom 5 unit in terms of runs per game away from home at 3.6 runs per game, 4.6 runs per game when they are at home, as just got a big giant logjam of guys between 10 and 14 home runs this year. Ramon Laureano and Jackson Holliday chief among them with 14 bombs apiece. Both of these guys hitting above a 255, and then Cedric Mullins 13 home runs, so he's not giving you a lot of on base. Ryan O'Hearn, Gunnar Henderson, and Jordan Westberg all between 10 and 12 home runs, with O'Hearn supplying a 375 on base. You've gotten Colton Cowser off the injured list. He's starting to find it a little bit more as well. So I do think that for the Orioles, even though they do have a bottom 6 team with regards to their bullpen ERA, it's been relatively rough outside of Felix Bautista and Keegan Aiken, pair of guys who have been able to give you an ERA below a 350. It's been the likes of a Gregory Soto giving you nearly a 4 ERA. Yunier Cano, don't you know, he's up to about a 450 ERA. They've been trotting out there someone like a Grant Wolfram. It's been rough for him, but I mean, for the Colorado Rockies, also a bottom 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA as well. Victor Vodnik, along with Jimmy Herget, Jake Bird, these guys have been able to supply you with a sub 325 ERA. So these guys have actually been relatively rock solid, but we have seen Seth Halverson posting up an ERA that's hovering right around about a 5. You've had Juan Mejia start to regress a little bit as well. Zach Gagnos has not been great as well, so it's a interesting circumstance. Did set my total at an 8.7 with how good Rodgers has been, so I like the under, and the Orioles at a minus 132 or better on that run line. 975, 976 on the card. The Minnesota Twins play with the Washington Nationals. Mitchell Parker is on the bump for the Nats, and Joe Ryan goes for Minnesota. 8 is the total. The over is minus 125. The under is plus 105, and the Twins are between minus 220 to a minus 235 favorite, and between plus 188 to a plus 198 is that number on the Nationals. And I mean, by money line price, a minus 203 on the Minnesota Twins. If you're looking to lay a run half, again, initial FanDuel opener here, you're going to be finding that at a minus 118, and I would need to be getting more like a minus 105 here. When it's all said and done, if we could get the Nationals above plus $2, I would be willing to take a shot here, and right now we're at about a plus 190 to a plus 184 in some spots as well, so I think that when it's all said and done, I'll probably be able to get a number that allows me to take the Nationals on the money line. Now, for the Nationals, I'm not necessarily backing Mitchell Parker here, as he's been posting up a 5 ERA with a 457 fielding independent. He hasn't necessarily done the world's worst job in terms of the home run ball. He's given up only about 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, but 3.5 walks per 9 innings, 5.8 strikeouts per 9. That's just very concerning, to say the least, and he is backed up by a bullpen that is dead last in the National League in terms of ERA. Cole Henry, Andrew Chafin are providing a sub 350 ERA, but even Kyle Finnegan is regressing, as he, Jose Ferrer, Zach Brzezinski, Jackson Rutledge, you just go down the list of guys with above a 450 ERA. It is rampant, and for the Nationals, it's going to be a case where they're going to need to slug their way to victory, but they're capable of doing so. About 3.9 runs per game at home, over 4.6 away from home. They're a top 10 team with regards to their offense away from home, with James Wood providing good wood, 375 on base, 24 home runs. You've had CJ Abrams, I have 13 home runs, hit 10 of them away from home. He's giving you about a 275. You've had Josh Bell be able to really pick it up recently. He's giving you a 315 on base. He's up to a double-figure amount of homers. I recognize that overall for the season, he's still hitting below a 225, but since the beginning of the month of July, hitting for a 452 on base, so he's been able to come alive quite a bit. When Ahmed Rosario's been out there, as he's dealt with some injuries, and he's just been in and out of the lineup, he's been hitting a 280 this month as well. And then for the Minnesota Twins, it's been the Byron Buxton show. Buxton has been incredible with his 350 on base and 23 home runs, but what you're going to get outside of him, it's anyone's guess. A lot of guys between 10 and 13 home runs: Trevor Larnach, Willie Castro, Matt Wallner, Harrison Bader, Cody Clemens, and I mean, in the case of Clemens, along with Matt Wallner, both hitting below a 225. Brooks Lee has been able to about at 250, and then you do have a lot of those guys like he, Ryan Jeffers, Ty France, in the neighborhood of 250 with not necessarily a ton of power. And for the Minnesota Twins, this has been an adventurous bullpen as well, as you've got a Twins bullpen that is currently in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. This despite the fact that you've got Louis Varland, Yohan Duran, Danny Kalum all supplying a sub 225 ERA. Brock Stewart has been pretty solid as well, but these guys like Gold Stands, Griffin Jacks, Justin Topa. You've got a lot of guys that have been less than trustworthy in this bullpen, so I do think that there are going to be runs to be added in this game, despite the fact that Joe Ryan has been very good. 10 strikeouts, fewer than 2 walks per 9 innings. He's flying a sub-3 ERA, has always been at his best when he's been at home, but I think that the Nationals could get to him. I think that both of these bullpens give up quite a few runs, so I did set my total at an 8.6. I like the over, and I do like the Nationals at a plus 203 or higher on the money line. 977, 978 on the card. The Cubs are going to be on the road against the Chicago White Sox. Aaron Savali goes for the Southsiders, and Cade Horton, he's going to hope to hear a who as he's getting the start for the Cubs. The Cubs between minus 173 to minus 194 favorites. Plus 158 to plus 167 is that number on the Southsiders. 9 is the total. The over is minus 125, and the under is plus 105. I was willing to take a plus 168 or higher with the White Sox. Right now, I'm seeing a plus 167. When it's all said and done, probably should be able to get that plus 170 or so to be able to take a shot on this White Sox money line. I was also, with regards to that Cubs run line, I needed a minus 108 or better with that. We are not going to be seeing that, as right now that initial opener is more around about a minus 115, but for Aaron Savali, even though the overall numbers this season have been very much less than savory. 4.76 ERA, 4.92 fielding dependent, with posting up about 6.5 strikeouts to 3.5 walks per 9 innings. He has given up 2 runs or fewer in terms of earned runs, because he's given up quite a few unearned runs, but 2 earned runs or fewer, and now 8 out of his last 12 starts, so he's been a little bit better with that regard. Cade Horton, not going to go out there and give you a bunch of strikeouts, but he's done a nice job of really not beating himself in terms of walks. He has been giving up a little bit of hard contact, as he does give up about a home run per 9 innings. 7 strikeouts to about 2.9 to 3 walks per 9 innings, and overall it's been hit or miss for him. He has given up 3+ runs in 3 out of his last 5 starts. He's also got a pair of starts against the Cleveland Guardians and the Boston Red Sox where he gave up 0 runs, and those 2 starts combined to be 12 2/3 innings. So has been up, down, all around for him. He is backed up by a bullpen that is currently in the top 10 in the big leagues in terms of ERA, but I do think that the Chicago Cubs are going to be experiencing a bit of regression with this bullpen. You've had a lot of guys come from out of absolutely nowhere whatsoever and be able to give this team some good innings. Caleb Thielbar, Ryan Brazier, Daniel Palencia, even though he's being utilized a little bit more as a starter, Chris Flexen, all below 2.50 ERA, so you do have to have a little bit of caution and concern there, but no concern with this Cubs offense being able to continue to mash. You've got Pete Crow Armstrong, Seiya Suzuki, both between 26 and 27 home runs. Crow Armstrong with 28 stolen bases as well. Nico Horner doesn't necessarily hit for a lot of power, but 19 stolen bases, hitting at 285, and then you do have a lot of guys hitting for that power, as Michael Busch, 370 on base, 20 home runs, 380 on base, 18 home runs for Kyle Tucker. Ian Happ, it's not necessarily giving you a lot in terms of average, but he's up to 13 home runs. Carson Kelly, 13 home runs in a limited sample size, 370 on base, and for the Chicago White Sox, this is a bottom 5 unit in terms of runs per game. You just don't have a lot of power in this lineup. Miguel Vargas, Luis Robert, Andrew Benintendi, all between 10 and 12 home runs, and congratulations to Luis Robert on now hitting above the Mendoza of 200, but he, Brooks Baldwin, Vinny Capra, Joshua Palacios, Josh Rojas, so many guys on this roster hitting below 220. That is rampant, and this is a White Sox bullpen that certainly has been having their issues all season long, as you've got a lot of guys with an ERA that is above a 4. Jordan Leisure, Greg Taylor's now to a 3.93, so congratulations on getting below that, but Brandon Iser, guys like this, they've just not necessarily been too great, though you do have Steven Wilson and Dan Altavilla supplying a sub-3 ERA when he's been out there. Tyler Gilbert has been solid as well, but in the end, I do think that this number is getting a little bit too lofty. I was willing to take a plus 169 or higher on the White Sox. Should be able to get there when it's all said and done, so looking at that White Sox money line, and do you think they get runs in this game? Set my total 9.2, so I'm also in on the total over, and we wrap things up with 979, 980 on the card. The LA Dodgers are on the road against the Chicago White Sox, as Garrett Crochet is on the bump for Boston, and Clayton Kershaw for the Dodgers. The Dodgers are between plus 112 to plus 122 underdogs, minus 133 to a minus 137. Then around Boston, 8.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110, and I did set Boston at a minus 146 on the money line, so I'm going to be willing to lay it. Garrett Crochet is right now one of your front runners for American League Cy Young. Obviously, Tariq Skubal is that number 1 guy as of right now, but I think Garrett Crochet, I actually believe has a chance to be able to track him down and be able to win this award with how well he's been pitching. A 2.19 ERA. His strikeout numbers are insane. 11 strikeouts at 2.4 walks per 9 innings. He's got a fielding independent of a 241. He's given up 0.7 home runs per 9 innings. It has been rocking and rolling recently, as he's given up a combined 8 earned runs over the course of his last 5 starts. He's won 6+ innings in 4 of those last 5 as well, so has been able to deliver some amazing pitching length, and you've got a Boston Red Sox team that does a really good job of backing him up with their bullpen, as you're just not getting that with the LA Dodgers right now. For the Dodgers, the likes of Blake Tryon, Bruce Sutter, Gradwell, Michael Kopech being on the injured list have really hurt the team. As you take a look at things for the LA Dodgers with their bullpen since June 1st, and they have been a bottom 8 team with regards to their bullpen ERAs. Jack Dreyer has become one of your more trustworthy guys with a sub 3.35 ERA. Ben Casparis, after he had a really nice start to the season, he has fallen completely down the toilet bowl. Will Klein has actually not been terrible in this bullpen, and when that's one of your more trustworthy pieces, that's not necessarily a place where you do want to be. And when it comes to Clayton Kershaw, he's been pitching to a lot more contact than he has throughout his career. 6.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's keeping the ball in the yard. He's given up 1 home run per 9 innings, a 3.27 ERA, doing for quite a bit of regression with that fielding independent being a full point higher, as he has given up a little bit under 3 walks per 9 innings, closer to about 2.5 walks per 9 innings. But for the Dodgers, they're just flat out looking to slug their way to victory right now. Shohei Ohtani, 375 on base. He's been supplying 37 home runs. He has been amazing. Andy Paz has been hot all season long, 19 home runs, hitting at 285. Freddie Freeman, he moves the line with 10 home runs, 370 on base. Will Smith, 13 home runs, 375 on base. He gets jiggy with it. Now you do have Tommy Edman, who's been up and down all season long, about a 280 on base, but he's able to hit for some power. Michael Conforto has been awful. He's been hitting about a $185, but all in all, this is a rock solid lineup that just doesn't have any pitching right now. And for Boston, you do have that top 8 bullpen with regards to ERA, as Aroldis Chapman is looking like the Aroldis Chapman of old, above 12 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's right now supplying this team with a 134 ERA, and then a lot of good mix and match guys. Brandon Bernardino, Chris Murphy, Greg Weiser, Justin Wilson, all below a 3.25 ERA. You've been able to have Jordan Hicks be relatively okay with this team thus far, though I'm not going to hold my breath there. But for the Red Sox, even with having Rafael Devers out of the lineup and even with shipping him off, this has still been a top offense in terms of being able to generate runs. At home, they're averaging about 5.4 runs per game. That is number 1 in the American League, with Wilder Abreu leading the charge with regards to power. 320 on base, 20 home runs, and then Trevor Story, Ceddanne Rafaela combined 29 home runs, both hitting above 250. We'd like to see Trevor Story get on base a little bit more, but still has done a rock solid job there. And then you've had Roman Anthony, not necessarily supply a lot of power, but 370 on base since his call up, and then a lot of mix and match guys like Rami Gonzalez, Abraham Toro, Rob Refsnyder, all hitting at least a 270 to be able to make those home runs really count. I do think that for the Red Sox, they should be able to get the job done here, and I think that Kershaw just continues to roll, even though this is a really good Dodgers lineup. Semi-total at 80.3, like the under, and the Red Sox on the money line. And that'll wrap things up for the Saturday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to our good friend John Jansen of Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Larsium, name does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm with you guys every single day throughout the baseball season on this podcast, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
Not all meals are created equal. For instance, breakfast has the spicy egg McMuffin for a limited time, and lunch doesn't. McDonald's breakfast comes first. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.